Hey, how's it going, everyone? Justin again. As always, thanks for watching my channel. Welcome back. Cheers to those of you that have your beers. I hope you're enjoying your work week so far. So I've been asked a question. My cousin asked me, hey man, what should I focus more of my money on first, like the tools or the toolbox? He's got a small service cart looking thing, I guess. I think it's a Stanley that he's been using for years in his garage. And as far as like his tools go, he's had, last time I seen him, he had just sockets, made in China sockets, just scattered everywhere. Screwdrivers scattered everywhere. He bought a couple of little snap-on tools, but nothing too crazy. But what comes first, or at least what should you invest the majority of your money in first? The toolbox or the tools? That's the question. So let's talk about it. I think the majority of not just my subscribers here, but from the chats that I've been in, from some of the videos that I've seen in the past, especially when people do toolbox tours and so forth, I think most of everybody can agree that you should invest the better portion of your money on tools, like whether it's getting a good quality tool or getting the proper tool. As you've seen, I have showed you guys some kind of shade tree kind of hacks in order to get around certain things without having specialty tools. I know it's frowned upon. Look, I'm not doing it intentionally to say this is how I do it all the time, just showing you guys that it can be done. But that being said, what's most important to you when you're first starting out? Saving your money or making payments towards a toolbox, or saving money or making payments towards the right tool for the job. So let's talk about that for a little bit. This is kind of a double-edged sword because I don't think you can really be wrong on either spectrum. As I said, there are a lot of people that would say invest most of your money in the tools or towards the tools because the toolbox won't fix the car, but the tools will. That's true. Then other people will say your toolbox is the storage of your investment, and that's it. So how important is that to you? Well, if you are better off, you have, you've had money or you're in money or you're making good money, I guess your investment really, if you've always had money around and you never had to worry about it, I guess however much you invest isn't going to concern you as far as like security, tool security is concerned. Or if you work for a shop that you're fully invested in and trust everybody in the shop and you've known everybody for years, well then I guess you would not have really, you don't really have to worry about that kind of security issue. If it's a shop that some of the guys accidentally forget to close doors or something like that, then you might, be kind of pondering, well, what happens if that one time when someone breaks in or they get into the shop, what are they going to go for first? Most of the time, people that break into shops are not breaking in for the tools. They're breaking in for the damn car. That's what let's face it, that's what they're really after. If they grab some stuff in the process, it's because it was open and accessible to them at the time. They're not going to waste a lot of time trying to figure out how to bust your lock open to get to your tools. But if you leave your toolbox unlocked, yeah, it could happen. I'm not saying it couldn't. I've heard about it happening, and it sucks when it happens. But there's other quality things that you can consider between various brands of toolboxes, whether they're from Harbor Freight, Cobalt, you buy them from Homec or Napa, whether you're buying an Extreme toolbox off the internet and having it shipped to your door, or a Monster toolbox, which is like a sub-brand that Cornwell sells now, or you're buying a name brand product, whether it's Cornwell, Matco, or Snap-on, or Mac. There's a couple of depending factors. So it depends on what you can afford, obviously. It depends on how long you are committed to this relationship as far as being a mechanic. You plan on doing it for the rest of your life? Is it just to kind of get you through, a small hurdle in life until you can become something better by going to school? You have to determine where you're at as far as where you're going with this career or this profession, or if you're even going to follow it. So that's got to be number one. Pricing. Yeah, pricing dictates a lot of things. You know, it depends on affordability. I myself have moved from cheap boxes to expensive boxes, back to cheap boxes, back to expensive boxes, and now I'm in a service cart and I can get most of this stuff done while I'm operating out of a service cart, mostly because I can fit everything in it that I would use for most any job without having to really borrow much of anything. That's including specialty tools, extractors, wrenches, this, that, you name it. For the most part, I have it. It's not a big deal. And I'm mobile. I can go from one bay to the next, to the next, to the next. There's not really one designated bay per tech or a mechanic in my shop, because everybody's entitled to use whatever bay is open and available at the time. So I like having that versatility of being able to move from one side of the shop to the other, and knowing that I have everything right there in front of me, and I don't have to run across the shop to chase down the tool that I need to run back across the shop to get back to work or whatever. So convenience, functionality, it helps me with the flow. It helps keep me a little bit faster, and for me it works. As far as the tools versus toolbox, well, it also depends on what you're buying. I have a lot of guys that will tell me in the chats, hey, nothing wrong with Harbor Freight, nothing wrong with ADV, nothing wrong with Astro tools, nothing wrong with OTC tools or OEM tools, been using them for years, never had an issue, etc. Very few times they failed me. I've been to Princess Auto, etc. Yeah, guys, hey, look, if the tool works for you and you've been using it for years, and keep going with that tool, and that just means that you can save money for a different tool that you might need. So that works out great for you. If you find that the quality of that specific tool or tool brand is failing you and you need to step your game up and try to go with somebody a little bit more on the more expensive side, then yeah, that's going to come to you at a cost. If you feel like your tools being in a lesser brand or an inexpensive box works for you, if you want to say, I'd rather spend $50 for this screwdriver than $50 for that freaking box, or $5,000 for that box, that's completely up to you. That's your decision. Or I'd rather spend $300 for a 1,000-piece Harbor Freight set and spend $4,000 on a box. Also up to you. A little bit ridiculous, right? But you can see where I'm kind of going with this. So if I was younger, in my younger years, what would I have told myself when I first got into it? One, don't juggle through toolboxes and service carts so much. Unfortunately, I didn't have the mentorship that you guys have available to you today. I did not have YouTube. I didn't know a lot of people that were in the industry. I think I knew of 2 people in the industry that could potentially help me. One of them ran solely out of his garage. The other one was a mobile mechanic. So one's toolbox was his van. The other guy's toolbox was a fairly big toolbox on the side of his garage, and then he had a cart on the other side of his garage, and then he had little totes and things on the shelves and workbench. So they already had a game plan. Everything was already figured out. And granted, at the time, I think they were like 10 or 12 years older than I was. So I was like, okay, so they didn't really have a lot of experience with some of the carts and toolboxes that I had seen. I really fell in love with the Craftsman 40-inch toolbox, really wanted one, but I didn't have enough money at the time to afford it, so I worked my way to it. And how I did it was I started off smaller. I started off with the, first was the red 5-drawer service cart with matte finish that was from Harbor Freight. It didn't work out for me, so then I went to the black one, which I found, even though it was a 4-drawer, it felt like I had more functionality out of it. I then bought a Torin toolbox from Costco, which was it was a nice toolbox. Only reason why I got rid of it at the time was because I really didn't have anywhere to store it in the process of moving from Oregon to California. So I had 2 boxes at the time. I had one at school and I had one at home. The one I had at home was my Craftsman one that I had at Sears for the longest time, but brought home. And then the one I had at school was my Torin. So when everything was all said and done and I was getting ready to, leave Dodge, I had both of them. So I was like, crap. So I made a deal with a buddy of mine and got rid of one. So I've had my fair share of cheaper boxes and juggling through stuff. You guys have an opportunity now to not only look up the toolboxes and specifically that you're looking for or looking at that you want to purchase, but somebody will go through and give you the complete breakdown of the thickness of metal, how many drawers, the depth, the height, the width, the the hard surfaces, interchangeable surfaces, additional cabinets that you can add on to. So I know I'm rambling a little bit. I apologize for that. I'm just kind of giving you some other ideas and opinions about this subject because I know it's going through everybody's head. What do I start with first? Guys, I don't know how to answer that question for you specifically because your financial situation might be different than mine, might be different than the guy to your left or right. So you need to do what's in your best interest. If you are spending, I don't know, $1,000 in tools and you don't want to put them in a cardboard box or a $100 service cart and you want something with more drawers, or you want it to be a little bit bigger, or you're only operating out of one bay, or security is a big thing for you and you want to be able to lock it up and trust the lock's going to actually hold up. It's all about your preference. It's about what makes you feel more comfortable. If you go to lock your box and go home and you don't feel comfortable that the tools that you have in it are going to be safe and secured in that environment, then you need to change something, whether it's changing the environment that you're in or changing the security mechanisms or the toughness of the security mechanisms on the box themselves. I hear some of these toolboxes actually have an alarm. Funny, cool, but funny. But at any rate, let me know down in the comments. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of people that say tools first, then toolbox. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of recommendations for toolboxes for people that are just starting out, that are looking to buy a good quality box for a fraction of the cost without spending buku dollars. I'm sure there's going to be people down in the comments that are looking for good quality tools. They don't want to buy cheap necessarily, but they don't also want to spend a killing. So let's talk about it. Let's share our ideas and thoughts behind it. That's all I got for this video, guys. Thanks as always for watching. We'll see you next time. Deuces.